There's definitely a bit of pressure. There's no need to deny that. No.
Different chapters in our lives, we change, and so it's a rediscovery as much as it is a reinvention.
Even more fun watching it, I think, with all of the music and
the reactions.
I guess some of the reactions were funny.
Mr. Walliker. Now that is what I call a rebrand.
Did you have sex?
Did you have sex? Did you have sex last night?
Yes, I did.
And I want to ask a bit about what it was like to watch the film with an audience, I guess, at the premiere last night and kind of seeing people react to it in real time.
Oh, man, I was busy making the most of the tissue, the one tissue that I brought into the cinema. It's not like I didn't know what was going to happen, but I found myself tearing up the whole time. Yeah, and I laughed.
Yeah.
It's always fun. It's always fun to have a shared experience like that, and it was so nice to see it for the first time with a theater full of people. It was really very special.
Yeah, it was. Obviously, Bridget is a character you've played for, 4 times now over more than 20 years. Is it quite easy to kind of snap back into playing her again? Are you kind of thinking about her a lot in the years kind of between the films? Or do you have to do certain things to get back into her frame of mind?
Well, she's different like we all are, in different chapters in our lives we change. And so it's a rediscovery as much as it is a reinvention, to try to figure out how the, things that she's experienced in the passing time have shaped her and changed her perspective and her values, and what does that look like, and, how do you, kind of imbue those things alongside her essence, which will always be, effervescent and hopeful and, joyful and kind and vulnerable and endearing.
Obviously, you two are joining the cast as 2 new love interests, and 2, love interests that are both distinct from each other, but also distinct from Mark Darcy and Daniel Cleaver, who we know so well from the previous films. Is that kind of pressure to come into a franchise which has such iconic love interests in the past? How did you guys find, approaching this?
There's definitely a bit of pressure. There's no need to deny that. But it's a very welcoming group, led by Renée and everybody who's there, because Renée really sets the tone of these films, and so it was joyful to kind of come on board and to sort of enter it. It was really exciting, and then and I think these characters are written so well, and there's a lot of subtext to them. There's a lot of sort of depth to them. There's a lot of things to kind of anchor a performance on, So for me, I just had a blast. I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, and Leo, for you?
And myself too. I mean, there was the pressure, a lot of which most of it being self-inflicted pressure, because, once you get on set and you meet everybody, and particularly Renée, you feel right at home, and you know that it's going to be fun. And for me, a young actor getting to work with Renée and Chiwetel, and even just be in the same film as some of the other actors in it, it's a very, very special thing for me.
And you get to follow in Hugh Grant's footsteps from the first one, and having a scene where you're kind of launched into water as well. Did you enjoy kind of getting to do something like that?
Yes, it was fun doing it. It was even more fun watching it, I think, with all of the music and,
the reactions.
I guess some of the reactions were funny. But, it's definitely a scene that I'll put on my show reel.
And I think what's great about the film is the way it balances, the kind of shenanigans, the joyful shenanigans that we all want from a Bridget Jones film. And, it really delicately also threads through this through line about grief and dealing with grief. Did that make it quite an emotional film to kind of be making it on set? Were there kind of moments where it was quite emotional for all of you?
Oh, sure. And several times all in one day, we'd sort of swing from one extreme to the other in the different scenes that might be paired on the schedule. It was interestingly emotional for different reasons, because the content of the of the material is quite touching and sad at times, but also because some of the characters are going away, and and that was a sad thing to have to accept, even as an actor, because this means no longer continuing the journey with a really dear friend, and that was really surprisingly sad, you know. But ultimately, I think it's more hopeful than anything.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, definitely. Did you guys have an emotional time on set as well?
For sure. It was right from reading the script, I think it was, you know, it had all of that humour, but it was, you know, it was also very touching, very, very emotional, and you connect with it in different ways, and you know that an audience is going to understand that. And it felt really right because obviously time has gone on, and, you know, there are different challenges as you get older. And there are different things that inevitably happen to you. So, and it really reflects that beautifully, and I think an audience can really, you know, travel along with that journey and probably have experienced some of the same things in 25 years.
You know, obviously this is a series which is really popular, and Renée Zellweger presumably knows a character inside out. Does that make your job easier as a director coming in to direct someone who knows a character so well? How does it affect how you direct someone?
Yeah, it definitely does, because you know, a lot of the real discovery phase is you're already like past the starting line, if you know what I mean. Like, this is a character who has a physical life and who understands, an actor who understands how she exists in the world, you know, how she relates to other people, all the basic decisions that really have to be built. But the flip side of that is this film very much finds her in a situation that she's never been in before. And I mean, quite frankly, she's never been a mother before. She's never been in, you know, I don't want to reveal spoilers, but she's never been had this kind of a loss before. And so everything is new. So it's like the perfect storm as far as I'm concerned, because you've got a wonderful actor who knows the character, who is still, nonetheless, discovering together. We get to discover the character now and how she is. So, yeah.
Were there particular moments on set where kind of her passion for the character particularly came across to you? Any kind of discussions you had, or just little moments?
Well, there were lots of discussions, actually, about that. But I think some of my favourites were, and it was partly in rehearsal and partly on set as well, was discovering how Bridget is with her children, because it's a brand new part of her life, you know. And yet, when we find them, they're already a bunch of years old. So So we had to have a history of of what Bridget the mum looks like versus Bridget the singleton looks like, that we know. And it was a real advantage to have, you know, Kasper Knopf and Mila Yankovic, who are really young but very, very special actors. But to watch Bridget, I call her Bridget, not Renée. It's funny that, isn't it? To watch Bridget interact with the children and make them so comfortable, and basically imbue the house set that we had. I don't mean this in a pat way. I mean this a real way, with love, because we all understood that Bridget leads with love, so their house would be full of love. Whether they're yelling at each other, "You're late, come on," whatever the scene was, it has to be within a big, like, shell of that, like all of that protective shell of that love. She built that on set. She's so wonderful with them, and they all felt like a family very, very quickly. So that was pretty special. Yeah.
And I know Helen Fielding has talked about how this book and this film is the most personal to her. How did you kind of speak to her about approaching this? Because, you know, obviously it does go to places which are a bit darker, I suppose, than previous Bridget Jones films, despite having that you know, a similar tone. How did you discuss that with her about how to approach this?
Well, it was something that was very important to both of us at the beginning. Was if we're going to do this, you know, I mean, I came to the project saying, look, you know, what I think there's an opportunity to do here is to create like a sort of comedy of grief. Like it has to be funny, it has to feel like a Bridget film, but it has to sort of leave. It has to be told in a way that allows us to actually honour what it is to have to move on from something, because it's something that, God knows, we all have to face at certain points. So, and I know that it was, you know, Helen wrote from her experience and from her heart, and it's all over the book as well. So it was always very important to Helen, and it's always been very important to me. So we really shared that shared that plan.
And obviously, there's two new love interests in the film as well. And what I liked is that they're distinct both from each other, but they're also quite distinct from Mark Darcy and from Daniel Cleaver, who obviously are involved with this film in different ways.
Yeah.
How important is that to have characters that do feel like they're representing a different side of potential love, like interest for Bridget?
That's everything. I mean, that really is. It's one of the things that the first film did so iconically well, was find two people who are quintessentially British, but in totally contrasting ways, and that sort of set the target. That film was a very different film from this one. That film was probably what I would point to if I were sort of asked what's a perfect love triangle. I feel like that film is a perfect love triangle. And this film's different. It's not structured like a love triangle, but nonetheless, I wanted two men who felt quintessentially British, but in different ways. And in Chiwetel, you have someone who is certain and secure and strong and loves the outdoors and loves the green spaces of the Lake District and teaches science and is rigorous, right? And in Leo Woodall, you have someone who is, effortlessly appealing and young and handsome, but a little bit surprisingly goofy and just someone that she clicks with. And yet they're not the same type of person at all. So it's very important.
And I just wanted to quickly ask about having Hugh Grant back in the fold as well, and having a version of the character which is maybe matured in some ways, but is still true to the kind of the lovable rogue, I suppose, that we know. Is that quite a difficult balance to strike, to have him having evolved a little bit, but still recognisable as Daniel?
Well, we wanted him to be Daniel. That was the first thing, because there's, we were fortunate, especially with that character, because he skipped a movie, so we haven't seen him in a long time. So we could really have presented him in whatever way. It was very important to us that he was Daniel. And if you notice, like in the film, he has a flip phone. He uses, like, he's not someone who's sort of joined the times, yet. He drives an old car. Like, he's a vintage person. And he has an arc in this film where we see him in a different light, during the film. So there's room for him to grow in his own way, as well. But yeah, it was important to have Daniel back.